We're going to cover two different methods to remove this temperature sensor from this industrial water pump. The first method we're going to use is our GripEdge Socket Extractor, and the second method is our GripEdge Broken Bolt Extractor kit. This temperature sensor was in a unique scenario. It was completely rounded out, but we couldn't hammer our socket extractor fully onto it because it was right against the sidewall of this water pump. So we're going to hammer it onto the threads on top of it. We're starting out with our SAE socket extractor in the 3/16 size. It was just a little bit too big. Once I try to loosen it up, you can see it is spinning on there, but it's not big enough that I can easily pull it off. So we use our foreign object removal rod, thread that into the back of our socket extractor, and it'll push the socket extractor right off of there. Now we're going to go down to our metric size 4mm, hammer this on, and this one seems like it has better engagement. Put it in the loosening direction, and I am able to loosen this up, and we can get this temperature sensor out of here. Now, let's say you don't have a direct replacement available, or in this scenario, this is just to showcase what our socket extractor can do. Since our extractor is a straight cut non-tapered design, this gives you bidirectional control to tighten and loosen. If you're in the field and don't have a replacement available, this will help you get back on the road. And in this scenario, to showcase that, we're going to tighten it back down, and we tighten it down enough that the threads actually broke off the top of this temperature sensor. We're going to use our foreign object removal rod to push the threads right off of this extractor, and you can see the straight cut grooves on the threads. Now, to remove something like this where we don't have access with our socket extractor, or if you break a bolt off flush, that's when you can use our GripEdge Broken Bolt Extractor kit. This is also a straight cut and non-tapered design. You want to make sure you use the biggest size possible. So in this scenario, we're going to start out with a size 4, but I know that we can go up to a size 5. I started out with the size 5 drill bit to level out the surface, and when I tried to drill down, it was going off center, so that's why I went down to a size 4, and it's always recommended to start with a smaller drill bit and work your way up. One of the most important steps is getting the hole drilled out as centered as possible, and then also getting your extractor deeply seated in where you drilled. The deeper you can go, the better it works, but since it is a straight cut non-tapered design, you actually don't need to be that deep to use it compared to a tapered extractor, but it's always better that you get more engagement. So now we're going to put a socket on top, and you can loosen up this temperature sensor. Now, it wasn't under a lot of torque, but to recreate that scenario, we're going to use the bidirectional design, tighten it back down, and push the limits of this extractor. It actually took a lot of torque to get there, but a lot of the times people hammer these extractors in and you're dealing with a rusted exhaust manifold stud or a broken bolt that is really seized, and they try to use brute force to break it free, but that is not the way to go when using the broken bolt extractor. You want to take your time. You don't want to just try to rush things or try to brute force it. You want to use the removal sleeve, push it out, then you could apply heat, get some penetrating oil, and go up a size if possible. You want to start with the largest size as possible. This size 4 was actually undersized for this temperature sensor, but I did this to demonstrate this scenario. So you can see how the extractor is starting to flex here. So that is not good. You don't want to do that, as that is still going to have a bit of strength left, but you go any further, you could potentially damage the extractor. So that's when you would take it out, use the removal sleeve, push it out, and now we're going to go up to the size 5, which is capable of handling more torque than the size 4. But if you're at the limit and you already started with the biggest extractor size possible, then you would just use the bidirectional design, try to work it back and forth after applying heat. You can rehammer our extractor back in and it will engage again. It's not like a spiraled extractor where it will chew out the inside. Now we can hammer in the size 5 extractor, and something interesting happened here. It was user error on my part. So I'm hammering in this broken bolt extractor and I hit it off center. I actually bend the top of this temperature sensor, so that is going to actually weaken it. I hit it back, which is probably not the proper procedure. I should have took my time and make sure to hammer it on straight, but I actually hit it to the side, and this is going to compromise the strength of this temperature sensor. So now when I loosen this up, it actually will break off the top. I thought I was good, but it broke off the top of the temperature sensor, but the threads were still down inside of this water pump. This isn't the biggest deal. We can use the foreign object removal sleeve, push the top of the temperature sensor right off of the broken bolt extractor. Now we can hammer in the size 5 extractor, make sure we get it seated in there, and then we can use the bidirectional design to tighten and loosen and get the threads out of here. This was user error on my end, but it actually turned out to be a good way to demonstrate the broken bolt extractor, removing something that is flush or that is below flush that you couldn't access with our socket extractor or a pair of pliers or anything. you'd have to use an internal extractor or a welder to get it out. But it is right up against the sidewall of this water pump, so it is really tight on the foreign object removal sleeve. So you can see the removal sleeve stays stationary, but we're able to loosen it up, as you do not necessarily need to use that removal sleeve to use this extractor, but you can use it to stabilize it, which can help. And then once we get this out of here, we can use the foreign object removal sleeve, push that threaded part right off of the extractor, and they can move on, replacing it with a brand new temperature sensor. Both our socket extractor and our broken bolt extractor kit are covered by a lifetime warranty. The only thing not covered are the left-handed drill bits in the broken bolt extractor kit, since they are technically consumables.